Hey everyone, we're just waiting for people to join. This is the ANC1B Transportation Parks and Public Space Committee. And we'll get started in just a minute. So I don't see our first item on the agenda. I can share the agenda for everyone. And then I can take roll call and adopt the agenda. I don't see our first person who is going to present on the agenda, so potentially we can just skip that item. Okay. Okay, let's get started. So as I said, ANC1B Transportation Parks and Public Spaces Committee, May 14th, excuse me, up at the top, 14th at 7 p.m. So I'm going to do the roll call. So when I say your name, just please say whether you're here or not. Julius?
Here.
Thank you. Santiago? I don't think it's here yet. We'll skip that. Zoe can't make it tonight. David?
Here.
Great. Dion can't make it tonight. Johnny? Did you
Present.
Snuck in. Great. Karen? I don't think I saw her. Nope. Matthew?
Here.
Great. Nicole?
Here.
Laura? No. Guneev?
Here.
Great. Rebecca? No. Ben?
Hi.
Is here, and then Jay.
Present.
Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we just made it. 8 is what we needed for a quorum. So we have a quorum. We might get a couple more people as the meeting goes on. But so here's the agenda. It looks like a long agenda. Some of the items I hope will go pretty quick. And then depending if the guests aren't here who are going to be kind of talking about the issue, we can skip them. So I guess I would like to move to adopt the agenda.
Seconded.
Thank you, Guneev. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. The agenda is adopted. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can look at the attendee list. So if you're here from Washington Parks and People, could you raise your hand in the chat? I think Steve Coleman was supposed to be here, but I don't see the name in the chat. So we might be skipping this one. This was just going to be, I was kind of saying a minute ago, maybe before we started the webinar, this Zoe committee member suggested or reached out to Washington Parks and People, nonprofit that started kind of working originally with Malcolm X Meridian Hill Park, but has kind of, I think, expanded to do more work around the city with parks, volunteering and helping support green spaces around the city. So since Malcolm X Meridian Hill Park is in our neighborhood, we wanted to have a discussion with them to kind of see how the ANC or this committee specifically could be supportive of their work, especially with funding challenges since it's a national park property. But if no one is here from Washington Parks and People, we can either come to that later in the meeting or try again for a future meeting because it looks like nobody's here for that. Okay, so let's skip that. Does anyone have any questions about that? I don't know what questions you would have. Cool. So this item, the second item, if you're here with the curbside electrical vehicle charger pilot, yeah, raise your hand. Okay, great. So Nathan King is here to discuss that. And just as a brief introduction, so DDOT is doing a pilot. This was not originally on the agenda when we posted it a week or so ago. I found out about it on Friday, and this is a pilot throughout the city, all 8 wards, where they're going to try to start putting curbside electrical vehicle chargers in neighborhoods. So Nathan King's going to be here to talk about that, and they might need some support from the ANC because of the change in the parking that this would cause. So Nathan, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And then you might have to unmute yourself. Great.
Oh, hi. I've got my old background from my last panel presentation, so I'll work on removing that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.
I have a short presentation that I'll run through quickly. It's Electric is a kind of has a different approach to EV charging, and it's just worth kind of highlighting some of the work that we're doing and the way that we've kind of structured us as a business. So if that's okay, I'll share my screen and run through it. Hopefully it won't. Oh, I need to be allowed to share. Hopefully it won't take longer than 5 minutes to go through the presentation.
Okay, so this happened last time, guys, and I think someone had to help me make it so we could share. So if anyone has an idea, do I make a
I think if you make him a co-host.
co-host? Yeah, okay.
There I go.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Just going to organize my windows. So we're about 4 years old as a company. We're based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm sitting in our headquarters, which is in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We're a small company. We're a startup, but we're growing quickly. We currently have deployments in San Francisco, Boston, and Detroit. And Washington, D.C. is potentially our 4th location that we'll be installing curbside chargers on. My co-founder and I started the company to address what we saw was a fairly pervasive problem. It's very difficult to own an electric vehicle in a dense urban environment like DC, like Brooklyn, if you don't have your own driveway or garage. I happen to be one of those drivers. I have an EV, but I live on a dense residential block. There's no driveways at all in my neighborhood. And charging is really difficult for me. I have some workplace chargers that I can use, but most people don't. And so we kind of started this company to try to find the best way to solve this problem. We're really exclusively focused on putting chargers on city sidewalks. We call this curbside charging. It is a reasonably new kind of way of charging EVs in the US, but it makes sense to us from a practical perspective because we're locating the EV charger where people are already parking their car overnight. And so we want to give city drivers the opportunity to plug in and charge their car the way that drivers who do have a garage or driveway do. You come home at the end of your commute and you plug your car in and you let it charge overnight. We're a level 2 charger. That means it's a slow charger, but not very slow. Our chargers will fill up most EV batteries after 8 hours. And again, this idea of making it convenient and affordable for drivers so that they feel an incentive to actually switch from a gas car to electric. Situating things, as you all know on this committee, on a city sidewalk can be complicated. There's permits that are involved. There's regulations that have to be followed. There are community and advisory committee meetings that we must attend. We understand all of this. We're built to sort of respond to that, and we respect that process. And what we do also that's different is how we actually try to reduce some of the permitting constraints and friction that the industry has so far encountered, and it's how we power the charger. So what we do, instead of going out and connecting to Pepco's main in the roadway directly, what we do is we borrow spare electrical capacity in the adjacent building. And so we're pulling out a spare 40 amps from that building out to the curbside, and we connect that to the charger. This allows us to skip what we call an interconnection process with Pepco, because we're actually just finding electricity that's already there and using that rather than creating a brand new service, which is sometimes not even possible because of the constraints on Pepco's grid. And once that charger is installed and up and running, I'll mention that we do this at no cost to the property owner. This is we cover all of that CapEx and equipment cost. And once the charger is up and running, we actually share a small portion of the revenue back with the property owner because we are actually borrowing that spare capacity from them. And it's sort of a way for us to lease that spare capacity. So it's a partnership-based model. I'll quickly talk about our hardware. You may have seen on the previous slides that the charger does not have a permanently attached cable connected to it. This is a configuration of EV charging hardware that is very popular in the EU and the UK. If you ever go to London, or if you go to Amsterdam or Paris, and you see EV chargers, actually they have tens of thousands of curbside chargers. As I said, in the US, it's relatively new. It's not new in Europe. This is a tried and true method. The EV chargers that they have on curbsides there are this detachable cable model, and it just keeps the charger looking clean. We don't think that people in DC want to see things that look like gas pumps installed in front of their homes and businesses. And rather, the compact form is what we call a piece of street furniture. It's really designed to actually sit on the city sidewalk and blend in with the existing context. The detachable cable model also avoids the problem that we see, unfortunately, in this country, where cables are getting vandalized or sometimes just damaged through wear and tear. When a cable is broken, it can take weeks for the cable to be repaired. So for us, the detachable cable model means that if a cable does get damaged, we can replace that cable very quickly. And the charger still stays up and running for everybody else in the community. We give cables out to our drivers once they encounter one of our chargers. There's a link that they can find on the charger itself, and that cable gets shipped out to that driver. We've shipped close to 150 cables to drivers so far, and actually Becky is back there now shipping a cable to a driver. And so as soon as we get that request for the cable, we ship it out to the driver. Again, it's free to cost. It's an industry standard cable connector. So as other companies offer this kind of model, our cables are interoperable between those connectors. Lastly, the cable connector that goes to the car is either the Tesla or the J3400 standard, or it's a J1772. So there's no need for adapters. The drivers get the cable that works with their vehicles. Really actually very excited to be deploying in DC. I'll leave you with this anecdote, which is the first charger that we installed in Boston. It was our first curbside charger. It went live in March this year. We learned actually just a few days afterwards, the partner property that we're working with switched his gas car to an electric car. And so for us, it validates that, that conviction that we have that drivers in cities really do want to switch from gas to electric, but are reluctant to do so because they don't have easy and convenient access to charging. And so that's just one anecdote, of course. It's not a data set, but we do see the power of our model. I think, is it helpful if I show the specific site that we're looking at?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. And could you just explain for everyone the specific, we'll show the site and then the specific ask, because I believe that you guys potentially needed a letter from the ANC.
Oh boy, I need my government relations person here to help me with the specific ask. I know we need your permission. I don't know what form it's supposed to take, and I apologize. I should have been better prepared.
Oh, that's okay.
But,
So
yeah.
basically, well, I'll explain that in a second. Just kind of go over the spaces and like where they'll be on the road.
Sure. The address is 1808 9th Street Northwest. And it's this building here. And basically, we're going to put 2 chargers that more or less align with the lot line of this building.
Okay.
And so where you see this silver car, and if you imagine another car parked in front of it, that would be those 2 spaces that we're taking for the EV chargers.
You don't have any, do you know how it's going to be signed or demarcated in any way?
Sure. First, I'll say that the existing parking regulations remain in effect. So there's no change to street sweeping, or I can probably zoom in on this sign. It is a resident parking neighborhood, so that remains in effect. And the parking requirements will be for people parked there, but they have to be actively using the chargers.
Okay. So basically what we could do as the committee, I'll kind of frame it that way and tee it off, is the committee tonight probably has some questions. I already see some hands raised.
Yep.
So they'll ask you some questions, and then kind of at the end of the discussion, we don't have like sometimes we have a whole resolution written and stuff. I think tonight we'll just kind of say, like, is the vibe of the committee, do we support this? Do we want to ask you to make some changes or don't support it? And then whatever we kind of recommend would go to the full ANC, because this is just a subcommittee. So the full ANC meeting will be in June. And then our recommendation would go to the full ANC in June, who then would write a letter of support or not at the June meeting. So that's kind of what the next steps would be. So Jay, I saw your hand first.
So as I sort of accidentally previewed in the chat before, my concern is less with this, maybe with this specific installation, and more just with, in general, curbside chargers, I think, promote the permanent dedication of public space to private vehicle storage, which may prevent or make it much more difficult to make changes later, such as adding bus lanes or the bike lanes that are directly across the street from this location, or even streetscape improvements. So, in other areas of the city, we have, added curb extensions or wider sidewalks, and you see things like, traffic signal poles and crossing buttons basically stranded in the middle of the sidewalk. So I guess my concern with this specific installation would be, if there is a decision to make a change to that sidewalk or to that side of the street, what is potentially involved in, I guess, what is involved in putting it in under that sidewalk, and then what would be involved in potentially having to take it back out again?
Sure, happy to answer that question. First of all, I'll say that we are working very closely with DDOT on our siting locations, and we make sure that well before this gets to you, we've already made sure that DDOT has no capital plans anytime in the next 5 years to add any bike lanes or bus lanes to this location. Now that could change, right? Of course, that could change. I will note that this is a 1-year pilot that we're doing with the city. It's also coming at no cost to the city. And what we kind of think of our deployments as, and this is not just the case with DC, but across every city we work with, is it's a revocable permit. So the city can come along and ask us to remove our charger if they want to make streetscape improvements, if they decide that actually they do want a dedicated bus lane or bike lane in this location. So there are mechanisms that the city has to sort of get us to remove the charger if they decide that's what they want to do. I do share your concern about vehicle storage on city streets. As much as I am an EV charger, running an EV charger company, I also bike to work every day. And I see the need, especially in New York City, where we don't even have residential parking permit. I do see the need to start to convince drivers that the allocation of public space for parking should have some sort of active use to it. And so in that way, I kind of consider myself a centrist on this issue. Adding an EV charger actually makes the utilization of that space something that is used for just storing the car. And so I hope that you'll consider all of those points I've made when you think about this pilot program.
Great, thanks, Nathan. I think I saw Guneev's hand next.
Yeah, thanks. I think this is a great idea. I just have two quick questions. Why this location? And then I think at the very end of your presentation, you mentioned cars have to be charging there, or did I understand correctly that if a car is parked there, they have to be charging? Or so if there's not an EV, will that other vehicles will not be able to park there? Or am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. The requirement to park at these two spaces will be to actively be using the charger. Now, again, this is not a DC fast charger. Like I said, most vehicles will fully charge their battery over 8 hours. So the idea is that these become spaces where drivers store their car overnight and also charge them at the same time.
And then why this specific location?
Well, so DDOT and its electric have agreed to install to install only 2 chargers in all 8 wards. And so this, the process that we go by selecting is a little bit of a bottom-up process where we actually have a wait list on our website. So when property owners find out about us, they sign up. This was in this case, this property owner found out about us, signed up for our wait list. We had other locations in Ward 1, but we sorted through them, and through different sort of selection criteria, this one made the most sense for us.
Great. Johnny, I think you were next.
Actually, I think Matthew had his hand up first. Yeah.
I think this.
Matthew, you can go.
Oh, sure. I don't really care. So I think one of my questions was answered. It's a loss of parking for non-EV vehicles. Talked about the revenue share, and so the property owner gets revenue from this. Is the revenue assured to be greater than the cost to them? Is that?
There is no cost to the property owner.
They're using their electricity though, right? They're not getting charged.
We cover the cost of the electricity as well.
Good. Okay. And then any car that needs to be charged can park there. Does that include taxis?
That's a good question. As far as from our perspective, we don't have any limitations on what car can park there.
I just see.
It would have to have, at this particular spot, it would have to have follow the RPP rules. Yep. So this is a RPP Zone 1 parking spot. So if someone's a taxi driver that lived in Zone 1, then they could park there, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, there's a couple places that have these inside, like the giant taxis were there all the time, where nobody else could get to them. That's why I asked that. And then just because it's in front of that owner's house doesn't mean that owner has priority to the thing that someone else has plugged in there. So sad, too bad, kind of thing.
No, there's this is city-owned property. The owner has no special rights to that spot.
Okay. I'm good. That's what I want to know. I'm excited about it. I think it's a great. I don't have an electric car yet, exactly for the reason you're talking about, because there's no infrastructure to support it. So the minute they
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you,
Johnny.
Nathan, I commend you. It's an innovative company, and it's addressing a problem, which is we don't have enough EV chargers in DC. and in just densely populated cities. So thank you for bringing this to market. I'm in favor of it. I have a couple questions. How would you, if you haven't yet, handle when an owner, if an owner changes their mind and they no longer want to be a partner? I suspect, I deduce you have you would have a contract in place that's multi-year, but if they persevere and such, don't want to be a partner anymore, how would you handle that? And my second question is, I do fear if an owner raises their hand, it's because they have an EV or they have an interest in buying an EV, and they would maybe use it as a dedicated space to charge your electric vehicle. And if there aren't any regulations or disincentives, they would just park their car there in perpetuity and use it as a free space to park their car, which would, I think, hurt other folks who'd be interested. Have you considered any like a reservation system or a time limit, 4-hour charging limit, or a reservation system to disincentivize or to discourage someone from cannibalizing the spot? Thank you.
Those are great questions. Thanks. So owner ends the contract. We have a contractual language that seeks to prevent, the owner doing it sooner than 2 years. But, in reality, if the owner asks us to remove the charger, we will. We hope that the revenue opportunity is compelling enough to keep the charger in place. That's kind of the basic model. So, that's the simple answer to that question. Is like we're building relationships based on the understanding that everybody's benefiting from it. The way that it works in terms of making sure that somebody doesn't park their own personal vehicle there is, again, the signage and the regulation indicates that you are required to be actively using the charger while the vehicle is parked there. And what that means is once the charger is plugged in, it tracks how long the vehicle's been there. I saw that there is a question in the chat about idling fees. And so the answer there is yes, there is going to be idling fees. We're working with DDOT right now on the exact structure of the pricing and how we model the idling fees. You can expect that the cost per kilowatt hour will be somewhere between 30 to 40 cents a kilowatt hour. And then once the vehicle battery is full, the driver gets a warning, a 1-hour grace period. And then the idling fees will start to set in. Overnight, we have a very low idling fee because we don't want people to be worried about like waking up at 4 a.m. and running out and moving their car in their pajamas. So we set the overnight idling fee very low, but during the day, the idling fee goes up, and that will encourage the driver actually in the morning to actually turn the spot over for the next driver.
Sorry, where does the idling fee go to?
It goes to us, the charging company.
Great. Ben, did you have more questions? Ben, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry to jump ahead there. Yeah, so this is really interesting, and yeah, thanks for helping to solve the problem here. So I wanted to hear more about the cables and so on. So do drivers need to sign up with It's Electric to use these things, or any EV driver anywhere can just show up and plug in?
So we do actually ask the drivers to give us their address. And that just makes sure that we're giving a driver a cable that actually lives nearby. We don't want to be sending, cables to, Pittsburgh and cities where we're not like actively deployed. So as long as the driver is within a certain distance of the charger itself, we ship them a cable. And does that answer your question? It is through the app or through our website. You can request cable.
Oh, so what I'm getting here is that nobody can park in this space until they've registered with It's Electric.
Well,
space
no,
for
that's not
recharging.
necessarily true. Anybody can park in the space and use the charger. Of course, you do need the cable to use the charger.
Okay.
We give drivers cables for free, but they can actually order one on Amazon right now if they wanted to. In fact, we do
Okay.
have a couple of drivers who have done that. Like sometimes I'm surprised to see drivers showing up and using our chargers because I know I didn't give them a cable. So it is possible to source your own cables. We are also looking for
Okay.
ways yeah, it's an interoperable standard. Other companies are building the same sort of charger configuration. So yeah, it's not a proprietary thing that we're offering to people, but for most people, the easiest way to get a cable right now is for us just to send you one. You ask for it. We don't charge a subscription fee or anything like that. It's, you can request the cable and never use our charger, that there would be no impact to the driver.
Yeah, and then I'd like to understand the enforcement a little better. So you said there's this disincentive that it's electric like bills people if they're parked too long there. But yeah, let's say somebody in a gas guzzling SUV shows up and just parks in that spot. Like, are we saying that?
I see what you're asking.
Have them towed?
So we have.
Enforcement work?
Yeah, I don't know about towing, and that's probably something that DDOT is probably better equipped to answer. We don't do ticketing or parking enforcement, right? That's exclusively parking enforcement at DDOT. And DDOT actually does have curbside chargers that they've been maintaining for quite a long time, since I believe 2018. And so those regulations are already enacted and enforced. So if a gas car is parked in that spot, obviously they can't be using the charger, and so they would get a ticket. The idling fees that we have are, going to be something on the order of magnitude of like $5 an hour during the day and $1 overnight. And that's just a fee to encourage the driver to end their charging session and move their car.
Great. So I'll let Jay have the last question. If anyone is in the audience, though, I didn't say this, but if anyone, a member of the public has a question, feel free to raise your hand also. Otherwise, Jay, let's do the last question.
So my second question is sort of about the installation and accessibility. What is involved in actually installing the unit and the connection to the house, and how will, going forward, that connection impact people walking along the sidewalk and using the sidewalk, just getting past it? Is there any
Sure.
disruption in the sidewalk pavement, sort of thing?
So what we do is we actually saw cut the concrete sidewalk surface. We dig down to the required depth for running electrical conduit, usually 18 to 24 inches. That equipment, that conduit gets laid down, the trench gets filled back in, and the concrete poured on top of the conduit, and we restore the sidewalk to its previous condition. So from the perspective of somebody walking by, they won't notice or see or feel any difference after the charger's been installed. The charger itself is 7 inches by 7 inches. We usually locate it about 18 inches off of the curb edge. And again, through the process of diligencing the site with DDOT, we don't install a charger anywhere that reduces the clear width of the sidewalk to less than 6 feet. So the reason why this sort of curbside model that we've developed that doesn't have the cable on it is important is because we know that dense urban areas have narrow width sidewalks, and having the detachable cable configuration means that we don't have to install cable management systems that keep the cable up off the ground or otherwise, organized when the charger is not being used. So other than that 7 inches by 7 inches that the post takes up and the 18 inches to the curb, there is no other effect to the sidewalk itself.
Thank you. I do also appreciate that you're removing the cables laid across the sidewalk or hung over it that
Yes.
we sometimes see now. So thank you.
I have a open invitation for anybody to email me those pictures, and I have a folder on my desktop of very creative ways that people figure out how to get an extension cord from their window to their street park car. But yes, I appreciate that comment.
Great. Well, thanks, Nathan, for being here tonight and presenting on the pilot location. So I guess I would just ask the committee now, how do we feel? Do we have a recommendation for the ANC, which would be June, whatever?
I would vote in favor.
I also would vote in favor.
Same.
Same.
Me too.
So I'll just do a quick little motion. I move that we ask the full ANC to write a letter of support for the 1806 9th Street Northwest pilot location for the curbside EV charging.
I second.
Is that Matthew? I think. Okay,
That was me,
great.
Johnny.
Johnny did it? Okay. Great. So all those in favor of sending such letter, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great.
I will
Aye.
Well, so Jay's abstaining. Do we have any? Sorry, I talked over it. Do we have any other abstentions? Ben, was that an abstention?
Yeah, I would want to get more information, but
Okay.
the motion passes.
Okay, I just need to record the numbers. Okay, thanks, Nathan. We'll let you know when the letter happens. It will be early June.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. And I'll put, before I log off, I'll put my email in the chat. And Ben or Jay, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to answer as best I can.
Thank you for doing this. It's a great idea.
Thank you, Nathan.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. So next on the agenda, we have a potential resolution in support of Council Bill 26-0057, the Motor Vehicle Insurance Modernization Act. Hopefully you saw that this, the draft of this resolution was in the agenda packet I sent all of you. This is an initiative spearheaded, at least within our committee, by Jay. And so I'll let Jay kind of tee it off. And I believe also Chris Figueres is here. So I'm going to promote to talk about this bill. So I'm going to promote Chris also, and then we can talk about the resolution. Okay. So Jay, if you want to kick it off real quick.
Sure. So this is basically, for those who are not familiar, the minimum insurance requirement that you are required to have as a driver in DC has not changed since 1986. So that you are required as a driver to have, $25,000 of liability coverage, so that if you hit somebody else or are in a crash and cause damage to somebody else's car or home or whatever, you are insured for $25,000 worth of damage. Unfortunately, $25,000 in 1986 is about $59,000 today, and healthcare prices in particular have risen even faster. So the amount of coverage that most drivers are carrying in DC today does not come close to covering the costs. So the Pedestrian Advisory Council, on which I also sit, heard in December from some stories of people who had been, in crashes and had been injured, and their medical bills and so forth were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the insurance of the driver that hit them would only cover that first $25,000. And so that means, frequently the remainder falls on, charity care or Medicaid or, crowdfunding. And basically it means that the rest of us pay for, drivers' errors. And so the bill currently in council would raise the amount of insurance that drivers are required to carry, and Chris can correct me, I think it's to $50,000.
That's right.
And then would also add some sort of escalator so that it continues to keep pace with inflation. And it does some other things as well, but those are the parts, at least, that I'm interested in and hoping to make sure get passed. The council has introduced some sort of bill to do this. I believe it's 3 times in the last 4 sessions. The last one had a hearing in December, shortly before the end of the session. And so it was reintroduced in January in a way that allows council essentially to pick up where they left off. And it doesn't need another hearing before the Business and Economic Development Committee. And so the request of this resolution is essentially for that committee to pass the bill out and let it go before the rest of council so that it can be considered before full council.
Exactly. Thanks, Jay. That is everything. And I'm happy to give a little bit more info. I don't want to jump in on you or the rest of the committee either.
Yeah, Chris, if you could just very briefly elaborate on that. And then I've shared my screen just so people can see the text of the resolution.
Right. So this bill came out of a trend and a problem that we were seeing. So I represent the Trial Lawyers Association of Metropolitan Washington, D.C. We are plaintiffs' attorneys, which means that we represent bicyclists, pedestrians, riders in cars, drivers in cars who have been injured by someone else. So we often see someone right after the worst day of their life. And what we were finding is that in the claims that we were helping them with, as Jay mentioned, the mandatory minimum insurance in the District of Columbia at $25,000, we were finding is woefully inadequate now. That level was set in 1986, and obviously we all know a lot of things have changed since 1986. So, but what I think that maybe even I didn't realize when I first started doing this work is, so for example, when you make a claim that someone has injured you in, say, a car accident, whether you're a pedestrian, a bicyclist, whatever, or another car rider, and you had health care, you had your health insurance cover your health care, for example. Well, that health insurance then claims a lien on your claim. So if you were harmed in an accident and say you hit your head and were taken to George Washington University Hospital and had a CT scan, well, you're right over the 25,000 right there. And George Washington Hospital is going to want to recollect that amount of money that they spent on your health care. So these funds from the insurance carrier are used for a lot of things. They're used for your health coverage. They're used for time that you might have missed from work, or maybe the inconvenience of having to go to care, or not to mention the ongoing pain that you might have as well. So this amount of money covers a lot of things, and 25,000 as a minimum in our city is woefully inadequate. So we are coming to you. So thank you, Jay. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the connection with this committee, and I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. We would like to invite you to recommend the signing of that letter from the ANC. By the way, ANC3C also wrote a very similar letter as well. And and to join us as a partner. There's a lot of other groups, as Jay mentioned, the Pedestrian Advisory Council. There's also MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, also WABA, the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, Multimodal Accessibility Advisory Council, and several trucking safety groups as well. And also we've been meeting with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and we think that they are also going to support as well once they vote on it. So lots of other public safety groups as well are supporting the idea because, you know, what, as Jay mentioned, at the hearing in December of 2024, there was testimony about people who have been injured. And then, so not only did they have this accident happen to them, but then they have the double effect of the financial crush that comes afterwards when there's not enough insurance to cover the damage and the harm caused.
Chris, can you also briefly speak to how the raised minimum in the bill would compare to surrounding states?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So there is a trend going on now in the surrounding states to raise their auto minimums. So for example, in Virginia, they have raised to the level that is provided in this bill, the $50,000. It's written as a 50,000, 100,000. And what that means is that 50,000 would cover per person and 100,000 would cover per occurrence. So maybe more than one person was injured, for example. So this 50, 100 level is what was passed in Virginia and went into effect last year. Also, North Carolina passed the same as well, and that went into effect earlier this year.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Matthew, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I took a minute to get off there. What has been done to educate the community on these changes? I ask that because I know there have been several people going on about the increased cost of insurance because of crime in the neighborhood. Insurances have almost doubled for some folks around here.
Yeah.
And now we're looking to increase that more. So I'm sure that the community is going to have a bit of a say. So I just want to be sure that we're out there educating them and letting them know that if this passes, they can anticipate another increase in their driver's insurance.
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Matthew, for that. So the answer to that question is that in the states that have raised, there are states across the country that have raised as well. I mentioned locally because obviously we focus locally, but the states that have raised have not found that their insurance premiums raised above national averages. Yes, insurance goes up every year. My insurance on everything goes up every year. So I would anticipate whether this bill passes or not, and as Jay mentioned, it's been introduced in several legislative sessions, and insurance premiums have gone up in the past years without this bill. So I would anticipate that insurance premiums would go up as they do. And we can talk about whether they should.
This would be an additional cost, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what other states have found is that it didn't increase their state premiums either at all or significantly above national averages of rates going up just as they do each year. And I have that data. I'd be happy to forward that to you. Yeah, and it comes from the National Insurance, the NAIC, National Association of Insurance Providers. That's the one, Commissioner. Yeah. So anyway, so that's where the data comes from.
Yeah, that'd be great because I know that I will get that question from a lot of my neighbors. I make sure I go out and talk to my neighbors about this, and they'll be asking that. So it'd be great.
Absolutely. I mean, one of our frustrations too, and I mean, this is going a little bit off topic, but one of our frustrations too is that insurance carriers have been making historic profits over especially the last several years, and have raked in all these premium increases that you're seeing without these things happening, this raise happening in the District of Columbia. So they're raising premiums because they can, not because it's necessary, and they're doing it to increase their profits. In fact, in 2024, the profits were double what they were in 2023, which was a historic year. So that's a frustration of ours. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm a consumer too, and I don't want my insurance to go up. But the fact of the matter is that insurance carriers are making decisions based on their business decisions as well, and we can't affect those decisions. But what we can say is that in other states where insurance mandatory minimums have increased, the premiums have not, on average, increased above national average increases.
Thanks, Chris. Johnny?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for presenting today. Are you in a Winnebago? Pretty cool.
I actually am. I'm sitting in a parking lot, sitting in one just so I can be in a quiet place with you guys. So
Right.
it was that or walk in the park.
I've got a couple questions. This is interesting. Have you considered bringing, I'm listening to Matthew, like a public awareness campaign to promote the benefits of higher coverage and the risk of being uninsured or not having enough coverage? I think that might be helpful. And I suspect there's studies on both sides of this, but are there any studies that share the risk of increasing premiums with an increase in uninsured motorists who can't afford the premium increase, considering what Matthew mentioned before? That triggered me in my thinking. And if that's, let's say that is the case, would you consider a phased approach to increasing minimum coverage limits in DC?
Sure. Let me hopefully I remember all the questions. One, let me address first your uninsured motorist question. That's a good question as well. So what the data show on that is interesting. So for example, when you look at two different states, for example, Florida has currently the least amount of mandatory insurance, but they have the most, or nearly the most, uninsured motorists. Whereas Maine, for example, has had this 5100 for I think maybe 10 years, maybe more. They've had it for a while, but they have the least number nationwide of uninsured motorists. So I don't doubt that people make decisions based on financial decisions, but I also think that maybe a decision to be uninsured, there's more factors to it. And then you asked about public awareness. So that's something that we've been working on, trying to get the word out, obviously through public safety groups like yours and others, social media, that sort of thing also, definitely. And then your question to phased approach. So let me answer that in two ways. So one, the bill, as Jay mentioned, does propose that there would be, the proposal we had helped draft in this bill was that it would go up by $5,000 every 5 years, just so that we don't have to wait another 3 decades to get this dealt with again. Honestly, we are open to however the council wants to do that. If there is a better way, great, let's do that. But as to a phased in approach, also we would support that. That's what Virginia did as well. So I mean, that makes sense. And as so long as there is a date certain as to when the phase in would occur. Sure.
Thank you.
Great.
And there's two other things in this bill that one is a forced arbitration discussion, that you would not be forced into arbitration, that it would be that you, as the person that's harmed by someone else, you could choose arbitration if you wanted, but the other person couldn't force you into a binding arbitration outside of the court if that's not what you wanted. But if it works for both parties, wonderful. The other one, it talks about enhancing the UIM coverage on policies. I'd be happy to get into that, but basically, I don't know if any of you have UIM coverage, underinsured motorist coverage on your own vehicles. This is a way that you would not have to take a credit from the other person. You would get the full benefit of your policy. So I'm happy to go into more of that if you'd like, but those are the other pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah. So we have 2 items from the public. So I want to go to those real quick and then hopefully see what the committee thinks about the resolution. So Alan Kinsick, I'm going to call on you, Commissioner Kinsick. You might have to unmute. Great.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. So these costs that are doubling literally after we see year after year, the cost already increasing for people that do have cars. So this is going to be steadfast for everyone that's within the DC who's driving a vehicle, where we're looking to double this amount to 50,000. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, so the available insurance for when you harm someone would be doubled, but that is not a doubling of the cost of the insurance.
but it trickles down to the person and all of us in some ways that have to absorb it. It's not like that one person that's driving, that's changing, that hits someone, just say, or a bicyclist hits a car, whatever it may be. That $25,000 jump in 40 years, that to me, especially being a car owner and driving and seeing just this year having not a ticket on my license ever, going up $400 or $500 and a brand new vehicle, it's crazy. So now on top of that, we're going to have now another 25,000 incorporated. So I have to say, I really agree with Johnny's question in terms of doing it a phased plan, because
Sure.
this city tends to just go a little cuckoo, and so do some of these council members. They want to get elected again, so they decide to make all these things to make it more difficult for drivers. I would love to see some of these fines slapped on some of these bicyclists who go the wrong way and go opposite way. So I really would like to see that, like some quantitative data that you have showing me, because I've heard opposite. I have friends in Virginia, and I've heard that it hasn't gone as smoothly as you're stating. So I'd love to see where you're finding that out. That would be great. The email is very simple. It's 1B05, and you could send it there. But also on top of that, I would think that a phased approach would at least give people who don't make that much money, who maybe can afford driving as is, and they're doing their best to make odds meet, and they're making a very low income, they're still going to get hit. It's not like only the people making six figures or the people that are teachers making 30,000 a year. Now they're going to have to, besides being pushed out of this town because it's gotten ridiculously priced, now they're going to have to pay more money to get to the city. I just think this needs to be like kind of, as Johnny put in, also the first speaker, I apologize, I don't remember your name, but I think there's to be thought before you say, oh yeah, this sounds great, let's do it, let's slap it on. I mean, I like Jay that he's been able to coerce and counsel you through this entire thing, but at the same token, let's be realistic about it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. And thanks for the question. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to jump on you there.
Well, I just want to move on to the next question since it's
Okay.
almost 8.
Yep.
So Jean, Hamza, gonna or allow you to talk. Yep. Okay, cool. Oh, I did promote the panelist instead.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, Jean.
It's all right. So I just wanted to clarify where DC is in the national average of what we pay in insurance. Where is DC?
Well, DC, it's a little tough to compare DC on a national average because DC being a city, right? Like it would be easier to compare it to, like a New York City or an LA.
Well, I can't accept that because, we're compared to states all the time and then we're treated like a city. So
Sure.
Where
absolutely.
are we on the
Absolutely.
national average?
And you also
Right.
just told me that when I was asking about DC, the national average, they don't go above. You were using it to compare us then.
Sure, absolutely. But what my point being is that in places like, say, I don't know, say in Virginia, right? In the Richmond prices, the Richmond costs, because it is more densely populated, would be higher than in other rural areas. But then compared as a state, the insurance premiums would be lesser because the insurance carriers are able to then spread the costs amongst more densely and less densely populated areas.
Well,
so
can you compare us with New York City?
Well, New York City, I mean, I don't have New York City specific because insurance carriers
Chris,
don't
here's
carry
the bottom
them.
line. Chris, we have in this city over at least 50% of the accidents in the city are by Virginia and Maryland drivers. We are on the border, and I got to tell you, I am tired of paying for Virginia and Maryland drivers on every level.
Sure,
they don't pay taxes to my city. They don't support our infrastructure. And so this, that needs to be addressed, that you can't even tell me where DC is on the national average.
Well, and
the other thing I would like to know is AAA. Where does AAA say on this?
I actually haven't asked them. That's an excellent idea. I would
of
definitely
course it
reach out
is,
to them.
because you're talking about drivers. You've talked to the bicyclists.
Sure. Yeah.
But how about talking to the drivers?
Right. And to your question,
let me just say, Chris, I'm an older person, and I have to have my car.
Sure.
And I have to be able to park. And I have to keep acquiescing to everyone but my needs. So I hear what you're saying, but these are just a couple of simple things. AAA, where's AAA on this? So those are my comments on this. Thank you very much.
Right. And the nice thing is that when when a Virginia driver does come into the district and cause harm to someone who lives here in our city, they will have the higher insurance limits because as Alan was asking, because sometimes we realize what about the low income person who has a car, but the question that we wanted to address is what about when the low income person is the person that's harmed, and if your paycheck is stretched and suddenly you're having to pay all these financial damages that someone else caused, that's the question that we were looking at covering.
Great, thanks, Chris. Given the time, I would like to get a check on the how the committee feels. I'll reiterate that there's a lot of whereas clauses in the resolution that just kind of explain the rationale, but the only ask here really is.
Could you put that back on the screen?
Yep. So the only ask in the resolution that Jay wrote is, therefore be it resolved, the committee should pass this bill onto the Transportation Committee. I believe, Jay, correct me, you said it's at the Economic Committee?
So the bill is currently in the Committee on Business and Economic Development, chaired by Councilmember McDuffie. It has also been referred to the Transportation Committee. So my understanding is once it is passed out of Business and Economic Development, then it goes to Transportation Committee, and then it goes to full council.
Okay. So yeah, so the first resolve.
If I could, Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's actually comments from the Transportation Committee. So it would be that the Committee on Business and Economic Development would vote the bill out of committee and to the full council for vote.
Okay, we can pass this bill on to the Transportation Committee. And full consideration for the council. So that's the first resolve clause, and then the second resolve clause is council should pass this bill to raise minimum required insurance coverages before the existing minimum reaches 40 years old next spring. So that's the ask. So how are we feeling, committee? Positive, negative? I can make a motion if we just want to vote.
I don't feel like I have enough information at this point to make a decision.
Yeah, I would not support it at this point.
Jay, do you want to make the motion? Do you want me to make the motion? You guys can make motions too. I don't have to always be the one to make the motion.
Sure. I will move that the committee pass this resolution to the full ANC for consideration at the June 5th meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ben. Any further discussion before the vote?
I just wanted to, I think the thing that stuck out to me was that very last thing you said about if a Maryland or Virginia, since both of them has passed this bill already, have already done this, right? Is that correct? Have Maryland and Virginia done this already?
Virginia has, yes. Maryland raised their insurance rates about 12 years ago. Not theirs are higher than the District of Columbia, but not as high as Virginia, yes.
So since they've done it and we haven't, if a Maryland or Virginia driver hits a DC resident, the DC resident will pay more out of pocket than the Maryland or Virginia person. Is that like?
No, in fact, the injured DC resident would be better protected and financially covered because Virginia and Maryland have already done this.
Currently, right? Like currently, right now, that's how it is. Like that's
currently how it is. That you are better protected if you are hit by a Virginia or Maryland driver.
Okay.
Than if you are hit by a minimally protected DC driver. Yeah.
Understood. Yes. Cool. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. If there's no more discussion, I'd like to vote. So all those in favor of passing this resolution to send to the full ANC to consider, please say yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Aye, I guess.
Aye.
I think were there 3? How many were there?
Yeah, maybe we should just do it roll call.
I'll do roll call. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do roll call because people have their cameras turned off and I can't see by hands. So I have Johnny in the top.
I'd like to get more information. So I don't know how to respond other than abstaining, because I don't want to full out reject it, but
If you don't, yeah, if you don't want to say yes or no, just say you abstain.
I abstain.
Okay. Ben.
Aye.
Cool. Matthew.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Julius.
I'm also abstaining.
Okay. Ganeeth.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. Yes.
Oh, you said aye. Sorry. Nicole.
Yes.
Okay. David.
Aye.
Cool. Jay.
Yes.
Santiago.
Yes.
Okay. Laura.
I abstain.
Cool. And then that is it, because Jean is still here. So then the motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yays, 1 nays, and 3 abstentions. Does that sound right to everyone? I think so. Yeah. Okay. Chris, thanks for being here tonight. Jay, thanks for working on this resolution.
Great. Thank you for having me. Thanks for your time. Thanks for all you guys are doing.
Have a good night. Okay, so our next item, hopefully, we won't be going on for too much longer. But I can't promise that, is, so if you're here with the African American Civil War Museum, can you raise your hand and I'll promote you to panelist. So that's Frank and Edwin, I believe. Promote to panelist. Promote to panelist. So this issue is in Francois Berrios district. Francois, are you still here? I know you said you had to run. I don't know if you want to briefly also jump up here, but it's fine if you don't want to. But so this is okay. Frank is here. Essentially, the African American Civil War Museum in the old Grimkey School building. There's been a big renovation there happening the last couple of years, and they have a parking proposal in front of that on Vermont Avenue. So they are here today to ask us for support for that proposal. They need a public space permit to make the parking changes in front of the school. There could be some changes to RPP parking. So I'll just let them. Edwin, if you want to kick it off. I think I promoted Frank also, but I don't know if it worked.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, great.
Okay. How's everybody today? Long
Good,
discussion. Yeah. So basically, in front of the Grimkey School, when we first started this project, the Department of Corrections and the fire department controlled the Grimkey building, and there was no parking. And with what we want to do, in 2019, the ANC gave us a letter of support for our parking permit. And we really just want to renew that same letter currently. What I can do, I think I can share my screen.
Now you should be able to now.
Okay, let me try again. Share screen. Shoot. I'm doing this on my cell phone. 1 second. Hold on. Share. Let's try a photo. Okay, here it is. Right here. Okay, you can see this right here.
Yes.
Zoom in.
So Edwin can probably zoom in. I also just zoomed in on my own screen, which so people can try to do that also. But
Okay.
yeah, that's a little better, Edwin, I think.
Okay. So you can sort of see it. But I can email this to you so you get a better understanding. There are 6 parking spaces called out in front of the building from the turn-in alley side up until the very end of the museum gate. And what we're proposing to renew the letter of support, would turn it from museum parking from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And resume residential parking after 6 p.m. 8 p.m. I'm sorry. So from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. it would be museum parking, and then revert back to zone 1 parking from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. That is the gist of the letter of support, and I can also send you the previous letter that
yeah,
we've had.
Edwin, can you reiterate what is the current condition? What's the parking situation currently in front of the building?
Right now, it's zone 1 parking. I believe there's hours associated with it. I don't have the exact hours in front of me right here, but it's parking there now. And then there's also a no parking for 3 spaces closer to the gate. So technically, there are 3 residential parking spaces and then 3 no parking. And with our permit language, we want to turn all 6 into parking, residential and museum parking.
So it's just 6 spaces in total that we're talking about.
Yes.
And basically 3 existing RPP spots. I think I'm on Street View right now. I believe it's 7 a.m. to midnight, zone 1 resident permit parking only, Monday through Sunday. You know, Street View is sometimes hard to read, but I think that's what it says. And so that's currently 3 spaces like that. And so those 3 spaces would change to kind of that split museum parking until 8 o'clock. And then after 8 would be RPP again.
Yes, and only Monday through Friday. So the weekend would be residential.
Oh, okay. So on the weekends, RPP only. And then we're adding an additional 3 spots because currently at the gate, let me share my screen because I have it on the map just for people.
Thanks.
I'm looking at it, but nobody else is. Did that come through? Okay, so here's a museum. Not yet. Is it here?
You can see it now.
You're
Okay,
good
cool.
now.
So here's a museum. So Edwin, the current parking is the 3 spots are in between these 2 light poles.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, and here's the current, at least as of 2022, zone 1 resident permit parking only, 7 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday, 3 spaces, and then okay, well here it says zone 1 this is the gate you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it might be outdated. So currently you're saying in between basically these 2 light poles are this.
Yeah, there's a restricted parking area right there.
Okay.
But we're basically talking from the gate where you see the blue banner on, going back down toward T Street to split that parking with museum and residential.
Okay. It would go all the way to T Street?
No, not all the way to T Street, just to that turnabout right there that you just passed.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So here. It's blurry.
Yeah, so from that white car up to the gate. And the numbers I'm using come from DDOT. They say it's 6 parking spaces. I'm pretty sure I've seen more cars parked there on a given day. And that picture that's an older picture right there, I believe, because it had the EMS cars parked there.
Okay, yeah. I somehow jumped to 2012 for a second, but now I'm back in 2022.
Yeah, it's fluctuated over the past couple of years.
So, okay, so it'll be from here to here. And the ANC previously wrote a letter of support.
Yes, I have that letter. That's from 2019. But the permit requested a more up-to-date letter from this current agency.
And then when would you need the letter by? Like, have you already applied for the permit, or is this just part of the permit application process?
We've discussed with DDOT the permit. They told us to hold off on the submission until we got a letter from the ANC. But the rest of the permit is ready to go. We're just missing the ANC portion.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for Edwin? Frank, I do see your hand is raised. I can allow you to talk if you want, but does anyone on the committee have any questions about this proposal? We didn't have a letter or resolution or anything prepared in advance just because we were waiting to hear the presentation from the museum. No questions from the committee? It's getting late. Let's see. Frank. Frank, did you want to add anything? I think you can unmute and talk if you would like. It's fine if you don't.
Oh, now, can
Okay,
you?
yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think I sent you a note saying I'm actually I think I'm in Illinois, Northern Illinois, right
Oh,
now,
okay.
Rock Island, where I'm speaking to a high school group tomorrow and Friday. But this is, the museum has worked hard to try to be a good partner in the neighborhood to improve the property values and bring a lot of good things there, including a worldwide monument now. And but we can't operate the museum in Grimpe without some parking. It's just impossible to do. And we're asking to take this back to where we had some shared parking, which actually means we are going to create more parking spaces than there were when the city was in the building before, because we're going to share the parking with the community from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So, and we think that works. That's when the residents are home and when they're looking for places to park. The ANC, I believe it's a fair and equitable proposal. We hope we can get the ANC support on this. And we have some other things too that we're working on that we'll come back to talk to you about another day. But today, we just want to talk about the parking.
Great. Thanks, Frank, and thanks for being here. Did you want to, this is something that Commissioner Barrio has brought up. I don't know if you could speak to it just very, very quickly, potentially about the bus stop south of Vermont and relocating the bus stop.
Yeah, well, we have worked with Ward 1 Councilwoman Brianna Doe. I think she referred to this in her letter that she wrote to the ANC. We tried to get it moved. That was our proposal when we first went in with it, to move it, because it really creates a hazard for that lady who lives right there on that corner. And because people sit on her steps, she can't get her groceries in the house without asking somebody to move, which gets to be contentious at times. So we wanted to move it. They're now saying we can't move it because there's some utilities over there and whatever. But we are committed to putting what is called a bump out at that corner right there. And we're working on the city to get that done. That will create another parking space at that end. And more importantly, it'll get move the bus riders away from that lady's front porch and enable her to have some use of own property, and also for the bus riders to have a place.
Great. Thanks, Frank. I see there was one question in the chat. So Alan Zoller says, the hours of operation listed by the museum are 10 to 5, closed Mondays and holidays. Why would the spaces be unavailable to residents from 8 to 8? So if you could just talk to that real quick.
Those hours are outdated. You're looking at our website from the old days. We're opening back. We're under renovation now. We're due to open in July. We're going to push that back probably a month or two, because when President Trump froze the city's budget, they also froze some of our money in that budget. It's all local money, but we can't spend it right now. So we got to wait till that clears up, and we're looking forward to opening in the fall. So you'll see, we'll have new hours then.
And they'll be closer to the 8 p.m. closing time.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Frank. Any questions from committee members? Francois Barrio has said he supports the parking plan. He's the commissioner representing the local area where the museum is, just for some added context. If there's no questions, I would like to make a motion that we support the museum's parking plan.
I will second.
Great, thanks, Shay. And also, I guess that we send a letter of support to DDOT stating that we support it more explicitly. Okay, if no questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Great. Passes unanimously. I think we're down a member. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9. So thanks for being here, Frank, and good luck with your presentation in Illinois.
Thank you. Look, I'll be back on Saturday. Thank you.
Okay, great. And thanks, Edwin.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving right along. Oh no, I just closed the agenda, guys. Hold on, emergency. I'm trying to switch tabs and I closed the agenda. I believe the next item is the capital bike share resolution. Does that sound right to people?
On the agenda you sent out today, the next one is the parking on New Hampshire Avenue.
Oh, okay. So I think we can go ahead and skip that one. Just to explain it real quick. So the constituent who suggested that one isn't here, and we've also already submitted a 311 ticket for it. But essentially, just really quick, New Hampshire Avenue northbound from 16th and U has back and angle only parking on one side and parallel parking on the other, but there's no demarcated parking spaces. So they're just asking that they be demarcated so it's clear where people can park, so it's more efficient, deconflicts issues. And south of 16th and U on New Hampshire has the same conditions and it's marked. So it just seems like they haven't marked it the last couple of years and it is an issue. But since she's not here and we submitted a 311 ticket, let's see what happens. If they do it without a letter. Okay, so then the next item is a potential resolution in support of capital bike share operations. This is in the packet. So this is was suggested by ANC Chair Trindade DeRamo. So it was his idea and we helped write it together. I'm going to pull up the resolution. And essentially, because of all the budget issues, he was just concerned that, bike share might be a thing that gets cut in the budget. I don't think that's based off any actual hearsay. It's just kind of want to get ahead of it. And given that bike share since its debut 15 years ago has become like a core mode of transportation in the city, and has been like growing almost exponentially. There's like 40 months of consecutive growth, and we have one of the busiest stations in the whole system is the 14th and V station in 1B, and then in Logan Circle and DuPont in 2F and 2B are neighboring jurisdictions. They have also two of the busiest. So we're like a core ridership area, our neighborhood. And we just want to make sure the resolved clauses are the sustain or increase financial support for capital bike shares operations and maintenance budgets, to make sure that the stations and bikes are available for use and in safe condition, to make sure that the bikes are balanced and rebalanced in such a way that bikes are available, and also there's places to park that are available. It's a little easier with the e-bikes, but your traditional bikes, you need the dock, so just making sure that there's free docks, but also I know a lot of times now with commute patterns kind of going back to before COVID, often after the morning rush, a lot of our stations in the greater U Street area are empty, so that's no good. And then use data and data collection to do surveys, especially to find like which stations are like chronically empty. I know is an issue, especially like up the hill. People like to ride down 15th, but hate to ride up 15th. So that happens a lot. And then the final resolved clause is as Capital Bike Share expands, make sure that core ridership areas continue to receive service and new stations and expand existing stations in those areas. So it's basically just a love letter to Capital Bike Share. I know I'm a big Capital Bike Share rider. So I see Santiago, your hand is raised.
Yeah, I wanted to say thanks for, well, I guess I'm not sure if it was you or Commissioner Trindade Rama, but both of you for working on the resolution. I saw a stat that I think I referenced in one of our resolutions last year, which was in 2022 is estimated around 22% of all trips in the district were taken via both Capital Bike Share and then micro mobility. So those are like the rental bikes and scooters. And I would just point to like, this is kind of like, it's like critical infrastructure at this point, not obviously at the same scale of, WMATA, but when you think about short trips, it can replace like, someone taking an Uber, it can replace someone taking, like driving themselves or something like that. And like thinking about, and it's also relatively well balanced in its subsidy. If you go to like New York, for example, a trip that might cost in DC, $3 or something like that costs 9 or 10. And when you scale that up and the feasibility of using it, it becomes really difficult. So I just like super support it. Kudos. Thank you for putting it together.
Great. Thanks, Santiago. Jay?
Similarly, thank you. I am also a regular, if not daily, rider of bike share to get from the top of the hill to Silver Spring. And clearly it is super popular up here on the hill as well, because every time I open the app in the morning, I cannot find a bike anymore. In the last couple of weeks, I've found bikes with 1 mile of charge available, or I could not find a bike and have actually had to take the bus to work again. So I am very supportive of anything that we can do to keep the system running and make sure that we are getting more bikes back out of downtown and to places that don't have them and need to be rebalanced too.
Great. Thanks, Jay. Any other comments from committee members or the public? If there's not, I would like someone else to make the motion since I kind of wrote the resolution.
I will move that we pass this.
Thank you.
Second.
So moved from Jay, seconded from Santiago. All those in favor of the bike share resolution, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? The ayes have it. Okay, great. We are almost at the end, gang. So the final item is more of just a heads up. No action tonight, but you might be familiar with the little triangle of kind of vacant-ish land on 625 T Street, across from the Howard Theater, kind of where T Street goes into Florida. I think for the last several years, the DIMPED, the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development, was trying to activate that space either with a market or other types of pop-ups like that, and never really found anything that stuck or was able to happen. So the Economic Development Committee at the ANC was kind of dealing with it. DIMPED is transitioning the property to the Department of Parks and Rec. So to try to figure out what to do with the space. So it'll kind of become our new issue that we might talk about as Parks solicits feedback about what they want to do with that space. It's not a very big space, so it is a little unclear like what they could do, but That block of T Street has had its challenges. So I think getting something positive in that space that isn't just like an empty lot with a fence around it could, you know, be a benefit to the neighborhood. So I think this will come up as like a real agenda item either over the summer or in the fall. Someone from DPR will probably come and talk about it, but I just wanted to give you a heads up as they are kind of moving it to DPR, and then the Economic Development Committee is moving, kind of pushing it to us as well. So that's it. Thanks for being here. There was a moment in the meeting where I thought we were going to go way late, so ending at 8:30 feels pretty good. Thanks for being here, and I will see you all in June. Happy Memorial Day early.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
A good night.
Thanks, Matthew.
Take care. See everyone.